Hold up. Wait a minute.
This is Carla Renata, aka the Curvy Critic, and I shoot straight from the hip.
Yeah, you know I'm always shooting straight from the hip.
Let's take a trip around the curve. Hi, everybody. How are you? Let me see. What am I doing here? Okay, there we go. Hi, everyone. I always have to adjust the camera because it always looks crazy. Hey, everybody. How you doing? I'm back home. Yay. I'm finally back in my own house, in my own studio. Yay. If this is your first time joining me, my name is Carla Renata. I'm the Curvy Film Critic, and you have tuned into the Curvy Film Critic with Carla Renata. What we do here is we do reviews of films, and we do interviews with people above and below town. Do interviews with talent above and below the line in the film industry. And every once in a while, we'll talk to somebody from new TV shows that are coming out. I went to CinemaCon last week, but before I get into CinemaCon, I'm going to tell you what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Freaky Tales, which is on Hulu. We're going to talk about the Netflix documentary Gone Girls, the Long Island Serial Killer, #1 on the call sheet, a 2-part documentary that is streaming on Apple TV Plus. Government Cheese, which will be streaming on Apple TV Plus beginning April 16th. And we're speaking to Paul Walter Hauser about his new film, The Luckiest Man in America. We'll also be speaking to the entire cast of Government Cheese, including David Oyelowo, the star and executive producer. CinemaCon was last week. I was lucky enough to attend the event, and they did a lot of things. Now, what CinemaCon is it is a cinema convention specifically for theater owners. So what they do is they bring all the theater owners together, including AMC, Regal Cinemas, and Cinemark, and the individual independent owners around the country. They bring them together for a big convention, and they talk about what the studios talk about what their slates are going to be and what their intentions are regarding showing their movies in theaters in the 2025-2026 theatrical release year. Having said that, it also was a celebration for Fandango, who what is happening? Oh no, you can see my bed. That's terrible. Let me go back. What happened to my thing? There we go. I'm like, what is happening? It was also the 25th celebration of Fandango and the 30th or 35th celebration of Movie Phone. So those two things were celebrated. They had a nice little pool party. I attended that, and that was a lot of fun. Cinema United is movie-going is their mission, and there was a very passionate speech by this man right here who talked about having theaters have a 45-day release, having theaters in the movies for 30 in the theaters for 45 days, as opposed to releasing it 2 weeks after it comes out. The very first presentation was through Lionsgate, and not Lionsgate, but Sony. These were all of the directors that came on stage to talk about their films, including Nia DaCosta there in the middle. She is going to do, excuse me, she will be the director of Final Destination Bloodlines. So she will be taking the helm over in that franchise. Some of the films that I loved that were talked about were, there is going to be a film about the Beatles. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 films about the Beatles. Each one will focus on a different one of the Fab Four. There's also going to be a new Karate Kid movie coming out. Ralph Macchio is back in the franchise, and Jackie Chan is joining. Ballerina is coming out through Lionsgate with Ana de Armas, and she was on hand to talk a little bit about that. Mark Hamill from Star Wars fame is going to be in Sunrise of the Reaping, that is in the Hunger Games franchise, and John Wick 5 is going to see Keanu Reeves join them. Also coming to the slate next year is Now You See Me 3, another film called One Battle After Another, starring these fabulous people, including Tiana Taylor, Benicio del Toro, Regina Hall, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Sean Penn. Maggie Gyllenhaal is directing The Bride, starring her the Lost Daughter co-star Jesse, and that is a picture from a still from that photograph. Brad Pitt is coming as a race car driver. It's only going to be in theaters, and it is produced by the producers. I'm sorry, it's produced by the director of Top Gun Maverick. It is called F1. We got a sneak peek of that, and it was fabulous. The Warner Brothers animation slate was revealed, and one of my favorites that is coming out is The Cat in the Hat with that lovely man right there, Bill Hader. I was also excited about seeing Superman and my girl Rachel Brosnahan. Y'all remember her from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Universal Studios dropped their slate, including The Bad Guys 2, Jurassic World with Wicked's Jonathan Bailey, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe's star Scarlett Johansson. There was a private screening of How to Train Your Dragon in my IMAX for CinemaCon attendees. There was also a slip. So what they do is they show trailers. So they show trailers from him. This film stars Marlon Wayans. Nobody 2 is coming out. One of my personal faves, Downton Abbey, is coming back this fall, as well as The Black Phone with Ethan Hawke. They did a nice little presentation with Megan. Megan 2 is coming out. They had all these Megans on stage do a little dance number, and then they descended up on the audience. It was kind of creepy, I'm not gonna lie. Shrek 5 is coming. Super Mario Brothers 2 is coming. And of course, Universal showed that trailer for Wicked for Good. I was so excited about that. And Ariana and Cynthia Erivo were in attendance for that. One of the previews I didn't get a chance to see because I had to head to New York for the Sinners Junket was the Paramount presentation. Ironically enough, the day that they did the presentation, I think the night before, pictured in this photo as Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise. Val Kilmer passed away. He had been suffering from pneumonia for quite a bit and finally succumbed to that. And Tom Cruise paid a lovely tribute to him by asking for a little bit of silence in recognition of his friend. Jason Blum came out as a bear. Oh my God, he's kind of hilarious. And then the people everyone is talking about, Glenn Powell, he was honored and he was there, as well as Jared Leto talking about a little Tron action, and Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis were on hand to talk about the Freaky Friday sequel, as well as newly crowned Oscar winner Zoe Saldana talking about Avatar, Fire, and Ash. The Amateur also showed a couple of previews from their film. And then Stephen Curry has a new film coming out called The GOAT. It is by the same studio, Sony Studios, that brought you Spider-Man Beyond the Universe and Across the Universe. All right, that is it for CinemaCon. So there's lots of stuff coming up. Let's see what Brandon had to say about all of it, because I know he was in here. He said, how was CinemaCon? I heard they showed a lot of animation announcements. They showed a ton of animation announcements, especially, let me come on camera, especially for Disney. Disney had quite a few sequels that are coming out next year, a bunch of sequels, but all of the animation things looked super, super cute. Live animation, live action or not, including How to Train Your Dragon. Everything looked really good, and I'm looking forward to the slates from all of the studios. I want to talk about this film called Freaky Tales. So it's not, I guess it's a film. It's a film in 4 parts. It is streaming on Hulu right now. It is done with Lionsgate in tandem with Macro, and it centers around Jay Ellis, who is pictured in the middle there. He plays Sleepy Floyd, who is a LA Laker, and it's set in 1987 Oakland. It is a multi-track mixtape of colorful characters: an NBA player, a corrupt cop, a female duo, teen punks, neo-Nazis, and a debt collector, all on a collision course in a fever dream of showdowns and battles. It is executive produced by hip-hop pioneer Too Short, and is featuring an all-star ensemble, including, as I said, Jay Ellis, Pedro Pascal there on your left, Ben Mendelsohn on your right, and a host of other stars, including Dominique Thorne, Normani, Jack Champion, Angus Cloud, and a brief little moment that you'll see Tom Hanks. It's kind of a Pulp Fiction blend of explosions and action and edgy humor and gory kills. It's done in 4 chapters. So chapter 1, I'll come back on camera so I can tell you all a little bit more about it and you're not just listening to my voice. So chapter 1 is set with this 90s vibe. It's set with a goth metal vibe, and it speaks very poignant to what's happening right now with comic 3D graphics and a tad bit of gore. It's a little bit gory, but the message is when society unites, anything is possible. Rise above, baby. Chapter 2 centers around Dominique Thorne. Now, this is where chapters 1 and chapter 2 intersect. It's all taking place in Oakland, and it goes from it is talking about a moment in history where we go from the Black Panthers to the skinheads. Overly sexually innuendo toward young Black girls in an ice cream parlor. There's a scene dealing with that. He says something about he's known to have a sweet tooth for the dark stuff, the darker the berry. And they'd say to him, the darker the berry, the harder the slap. I laughed out loud. I love the soundtrack in chapter 2. It had Love Comes Down by Evelyn Champagne King, and there was a battle of female MCs. Chapter 3 is called Born to Mac. This is the one that features Tom Hanks as a video store cinephile. Pedro Pascal has a wife that's killed in retaliation for him being a hitman. Again, the soundtrack is slamming. Hard to Go by Tower of Power is playing. And then chapter 4 is Jay Ellis, who is part of the Showtime Lakers, because remember, this takes place in the 80s. And he's robbed during the game against the Warriors. His whole family is murdered. And you see him become a vigilante, Kill Bill style. I enjoyed Freaky Tales. It took me a minute to catch on to what was going on because it is kind of out there and very avant-garde in a lot of different ways, but I enjoyed it. So it is streaming on Hulu, and you guys should check it out if you get a chance. All right. It is called Freaky Tales. Number 1 on the call sheet is on Apple TV Plus, and it is directed by Reginald Hudlin and Shola Lynch. For old heads, Reginald Hudlin is the same person who directed Boomerang with Eddie Murphy, among other things. And this is a 2025 2-part documentary that explores the experiences of leading men and women, Black leading men and women in Hollywood. Part 1 centers on the Black men, and part 2 centers on the Black women. Part 1 also deals with the actual idea of what being number 1 on the call sheet means, and how these artists define that moment and when that moment happened for them in their careers. It's really interesting, some of the things they say. And Denzel Washington, he keeps it all the way real. He is not one for the shenanigans, but it features Denzel Washington, Idris Elba, Halle Berry, Gabourey Sidibe, Gabrielle Union, Taraji P. Henson. I mean, Jamie Foxx. Fox's production company, Foxhole Productions, is the producer of that. In part 2, when we're dealing with the actresses, they talk about everything, honey, from being called sassy to hair and makeup shenanigans and being placed in a box because your agents or your managers don't know what to do with you. It's educational. Both parts are educational for anybody in or outside of the business. That, again, is number 1 on the call sheet. Now, Paul Walter Hauser, he's one of my favorite actors. He is in a film called The Luckiest Man in America. So basically, this ice cream truck driver, his name is Michael Larson. Michael wants to be a contestant on Pressure Luck. He applies. They don't really call him in. He kind of sneaks his way onto the lot, and he ends up becoming a contestant. He discovers a secret way to win as a contestant on the game show Pressure Luck. And at the time, the reason he was able to figure that out is they only had 5 patterns of the things going around the screen before you click the thing to say stop. No whammies, right? Well, Shenanigans ensued. They accused the boy of cheating. They were trying to get him arrested and all that, but you can't be arrested and you can't be accused of cheating because you figured out a pattern. It's like counting cards, but it's not illegal, if that makes any sense. Anywho, it deals with this ordinary dude who just beats the system. The need to be loved by any means necessary. They reveal issues that he's having with his ex-wife and his daughter. It also shows behind the scenes of how the producers tried to manipulate his winning for ratings. Thus the title, The Luckiest Man in America. And it also shows the emotional toll it took behind the scenes on the other contestants, the producers, the audience, and Michael Larson himself. But Paul Walter Hauser and I sat down and we chatted about it. And I'm going to let you listen to this conversation that we had. So take a look and a listen to this interview with Paul Michael Hauser around The Luckiest Man in America. Oh, and the director, Samir. Were you a fan of game shows before you delved into this project?
I am a fan of game shows. Growing up, Jeopardy, Supermarket Sweep, Price is Right, there were like a half dozen I would watch that I loved. But I think what's alluring about them, not just because you can win money and it's trivia, it's a game of chance, but it's like everybody's on an even playing field. Like anybody could win. It's not about like social hierarchy or where you're from or whatever. But in this case, the story does tell this crazy tale of a guy who had his own advantage, which was figuring out the pattern of the game, the algorithm, as it were, and of course exploiting that to win a crazy amount of money on television that has rarely been rivaled since.
I was fascinated by that actually because, and I probably shouldn't say this on camera, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I was in Vegas doing a show. And in between shows, on my 2 show days, I would go over to the casino next to ours and I would play slot machines. And I would play this Wheel of Fortune slot machine. And I started to notice that there was a pattern in how I was winning. And so I would follow that pattern and I would win every time I played. And I mean, big bucks, like not some like, it was nothing to sneeze at. We're talking
purse money. Yeah, purse money.
Listen, when I tell you the casino figured me out, and one day I went over there and I would go to the same bank every time. I went over there one day and Paul, they had removed the whole entire bank of slot machines for Wheel of Fortune. The whole bank was gone. It was a whole circle of them and the whole thing was gone. I'm like, oh no. And I told somebody at a nail salon that story. They said they had cameras on you. They were watching you.
Yeah, they said no more pets. Hey, Jack, you're done, lady. Done. They shut you down. I was playing blackjack. I was playing blackjack on a Delta flight the other day. They have games on the screen or whatever. And it was funny. I realized I was like, every time I get dealt a 12 and it says hit or stand, anytime I hit it goes 22. And I bust. And I'm like, so I stopped hitting on 12 and then the other guy would bust. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
There's a pattern, but Michael Larson figured it out and he got busted. And they were trying to say he was cheating, but it's not really cheating if you just figured it out. You just beat them at their own game, really. Had you heard about Michael Larson prior to playing playing him in this project? I'm sorry, my mouth was trained.
No, you're fine. I hadn't heard of Michael prior to the project, but it made me research him, and I found out a lot of people did know about this story because they either lived through it and watched it live, or they watched the Game Show Network documentary of the same, subject. And people are really, I've been getting stopped on the street. People are really excited to see this movie. They really are fascinated in this character and they want to know what really happened. So I'm excited to have people see it.
Yeah, there's always a fascination with game shows and scandals that follow them. I remember there was a film a little while ago called Quiz Show with Ray Fiennes.
Oh, I love that movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there was that. And then I think there might have been a scandal with Jeopardy at one point. But people are fascinated by that because you think that it's all up and up until you find out that it's not. And you find out that the producers manipulate who the contestants are. They are very specific about who they choose. Like for The Price is Right, they choose people that are really crazy and loud and gregarious to come, when they say, come on down to The Price is Right, they pick people that are not going to be like, oh no, I can't. They pick people that are just out of their minds.
Yeah, I don't think timidity goes very far on The Price is Right. You kind of need somebody who's bursting at the seams, who's going to hug and smooch Bob Barker until he's uncomfortable,
That part right there.
Yeah.
Michael seemed to, he was like a very lovable character, even though you knew he was a little off. He probably had a little ADHD going on, and he was very lovable, but he seemed to crave love and attention by any means necessary. And in this case, on national television, right? How far do you think you would go and to get that kind of attention, or would you let your boundaries kind of stop you in your tracks?
And I think there was a time in my life where I was I was starved for attention, and I wanted people to love me because I didn't love myself. And now as I, got sober and went to therapy and got on sertraline and all these things you can do in the name of, maturation, I've discovered I do like and love myself, and I don't sort of lash out and do things for the favor of others. I have a better sense of self-preservation and respect, but there was a time when, sort of the Chris Farley, Robin Williams thing where you're always performing for people. I had that for years and had to kind of break it off.
Cool. Well, congratulations on that journey. I know that wasn't an easy one. So congratulations that you're on the other side of it. Last but not least, how would you press your luck moving forward?
I think I'm doing it right now by wrestling. I took up professional wrestling as one of my many, people call it a side quest or a side hustle. I don't really do side quests. Everything I do is a full-on real quest. So I started wrestling and doing what I call the reverse Dwayne Johnson, where it's not a wrestler turned actor, it's an actor turned wrestler. And I've ingratiated myself in that world, and I press my luck every time I get in the ring, because the littlest, move, if I do it one wrong way or another and we don't catch ourselves, you could injure yourself. Or injure the other person. So that is how I'm pressing my luck as of late. And my children are pressing my luck as they are not going to bed on time. They are pushing our buttons just like on the show. And I'm feeling the whammies. We gotta get a schedule going. Yeah.
I love that. Paul Walter Hauser, you never cease to amaze me. You are actually one of my favorite actors because you're like a cinematic chameleon. I'm always surprised by every project that you do, and I will always champion you. So I think you're absolutely wonderful, but you know this.
That's incredibly sweet of you. Thank you. And same to you. You bring great energy to every interview we do, and an enthusiasm that is, I'm rooting you on as you are me. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I'll see you next time.
See you next time.
So had you heard about Michael Larson before you came on to this project? Because I have to say, I've kept up with a lot of those game show scandals. I remember the one that happened with Quiz Show. I remember there was one with another game show a little while ago, but I hadn't heard about this one with Press Your Luck.
Yeah, I actually found this in a very interesting way. I usually go when I'm writing. I go to Goodwills and thrift shops and browse for like film negatives and photos because I think that these are really good inspiration for characters.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was like browsing through stuff, I found VHS tapes, and I played one of them, and it was a taping of Press Your Luck. I was like, oh, I've never heard of this game show. It looks really fun. And then when I started to research, I found about the Michael Larson scandal. And that's when I thought then I looked for the movie. I was like, oh, this must be a really good movie. And then I realized there was no movie, so we decided to make it.
I also wanted to know how you came upon choosing Paul Walter Hauser. He was perfect. I think he's just such a cinematic chameleon when it comes to inhabiting roles on screen. And I'm wondering, for you as his director, what was it about him in particular that made you feel like he could completely and fully inhabit Michael while bringing authenticity to that role, which is actually a real person?
And at the time, we had seen him perform in Richard Jewell, the Clint Eastwood movie, and we were like, okay, this guy's really good. And then when we were about to start sending offers, Blackbird came out, and then we saw Blackbird, and we were like, okay, he's amazing. He definitely has the chops, and that's why we thought that he had both the best of both worlds, and that's why we went with him.
I enjoyed this conversation with you, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you for helping us spread the word for it.
Oh, listen, anything with Paul in it, I'm all about it, and I'm down to spread the word. It is no problem at all.
That's great.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, you guys, check it out. It is called The Luckiest Man in America. It is about Michael Larson and his one episode triumph on the game show Press Your Luck. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, I'll be talking about Sinners, because I did that. That's me doing my best imitation of being a sinner based on what I saw in the movie. Just wrong. But Sinners stars Michael B. Jordan. It is directed from Ryan Coogler. This is their 5th collaboration together. It is a ride, and you definitely don't want to miss it. I had a beautiful view of Central Park when I was there. I just had to show y'all that. My room faced that. That looks like a postcard, right? I totally took that with my phone. I was so excited. I'll also come back and be talking about The Ballad of Wallace Island, and I have the creatives and stars of that film. We'll be talking about that. And we'll also be talking about, when I come back, G20 with Viola Davis and The Amateur with Rami Malek and Lawrence Fishburne. There is a series that I want to tell you guys about. It is a documentary series. It is called Gone Girl. It's called Gone Girls, the Long Island Serial Killer. What I want to tell you about this is this was a feature film a little while ago. It was directed by Liz Garbus, and now it is I think it's a 3-part documentary series. It's streaming on Netflix, and it basically deals with, there was a period of time where there were some prostitutes that went missing in the Long Island area. And it examines the hunt for the serial killer that took these girls' lives and the journey that their loved ones went on with the police and the media to investigate the year-long process of discovering who the killer was, who the process, because it started out just being an investigation of one young lady, and that investigation opened up, leading them to clues for 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7 other young ladies in the Long Island area, and that there was a cover-up happening with the Suffolk County Police Department, shenanigans with the Suffolk County Police Department, and the fact that the guy who was the serial killer was an architect, but had this house that looked like a house of horrors. It was a hot mess, but it's very fascinating. I'm always fascinated by true crime, and this is no different. And I'm a huge fan of Liz Garbus, the director. So again, it is called Gone Girls, the Long Island Serial Killer. There's another show that is streaming. It is streaming on Apple TV Plus. It's called The Studio. Baby, when I watched this, I laughed out loud. So this is what's happening in the studio. Seth Rogen wrote, produced, and is starring in this series. And it deals with this young man who is like, he's a studio executive, but he's not the head of the studio. And then his boss, who is the head of the studio, gets fired, and he gets named to be the head of the studio. they break it down, and anybody that lives in Hollywood and knows how it works behind the scenes is gonna holler out loud because the way that Seth breaks it down, like there's a whole episode about CinemaCon, which I laughed out loud about because I knew I was going to CinemaCon. So to know that he did a whole episode about CinemaCon and the shenanigans that ensue, he did a whole episode around. I don't want to tell you too much about it because it's freaking hilarious, but it's really good, and it's called The Studio, and it's streaming on Apple TV Plus. I'm trying to stretch some time here because the other interview that I have hasn't downloaded yet, and so I'm trying to stretch the time. But I'll just recap what I talked about. Again, Freaky Tales is on Hulu. You want to check that out. Number one on the call sheet is on Apple TV Plus. It's a 2-part documentary film event that features the talents of Angela Bassett, Viola Davis, Octavia Spencer, Whoopi Goldberg, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, Will Smith, Halle Berry, and so many, 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 many more. It is directed by Reginald Hudlin and Shola. Shola Lynch, you do not want to miss it. It is so, 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 so good. The Luckiest Man Alive with Paul Walter Hauser is in theaters right now. And we talked a little bit about CinemaCon and what happened there. So having said all of that, hopefully this filed and downloaded. It ain't downloaded yet. I may have to just put it up separately, but the interview is with David Oyelowo around government cheese. And that's it. Let me see. I think I talked about everything, though. I'm pretty sure I talked about everything. I'm just going through the scroll to see. Oh, you know what I do want to say about CinemaCon? When Ariana and Cynthia were there last year, when they did a presentation for Wicked, it was a whole thing. They gave us pink and green flowers, and the whole theater was lit up pink and green. But this year, this is what I wanted to say. One of the highlights of CinemaCon was this year, instead of doing the whole big overblown Wicked thing, Universal Studios had a full-blown orchestra. You can see the musicians kind of sitting behind them there. Cynthia and Ari did not sing, but they did have a full-on orchestra, and they played the theme songs to all of our favorite movies live with a full orchestra, kind of like when you go to the Hollywood Bowl. There's a thing that I go to at the Hollywood Bowl every year, and they play all of the theme songs from these movies, and it's with a full orchestra with the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra, and it is great. I loved that so much. But they had a full orchestra there, and Ari and Cynthia talked about For Good, but they did not sing, and it was really quite stellar. I missed the Disney, and I think it was Disney and Paramount. I missed their presentations because when I was there, I was able to see the Warner Brothers presentation. I saw the Warner Brothers presentation, Sony Pictures Lionsgate, and the screening of How to Train Your Dragon and Amazon MGM slate. I missed the slate for Disney because that was the next day, and that was when I flew to New York to be part of the Sinners junket. I'll just talk a little bit about Sinners, a little bit to give y'all a little bit of insight. This movie is crazy. I can't talk about it. The film itself, review-wise, is under embargo, but what I can tell you is it is a horror film. It is a really interesting type of horror film, and it's something that I've never seen before, to the point where I was like, what am I looking at? But I did do interviews. I did speak to everybody. So this is the thing. So I talked to everybody except for Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan. I don't know why, but I was grateful for who I got. They were lovely. So I spoke to Wumi Musaku, who is in Loki, and among other things, I spoke to Haley Steinfeld, who was an Oscar nominee for True Grit back in the day when she was a kid. So I did have an opportunity to speak to those people and a couple of other folks that are in the film. Everybody else I spoke to, Delroy Lindo, who was always so deep and profound every time I talked to him. Love talking to him. And this was the premiere was at the AMC it was the world premiere, and it was in New York City. As it says there, it doesn't hit theaters until April 18th, 16th or 18th, and they haven't told us quite yet what the embargo situation is regarding reviews for that. But as soon as as soon as that embargo lifts, I'll be able to talk about it a little bit more. What else? There was something else I wanted to tell you guys. I can't remember what it is. Oh, and also in the next coming weeks, in addition to the films I already said I'll be talking about, I'm also going to be talking about these films that are coming out. So I mentioned G20 and The Amateur and The Ballad of Wallace Island, but there's also The Accountant 2. So The Accountant 2 screened at South by Southwest Film Festival. And I never really go to South by Southwest because it feels more like a music and TV festival to me than a film festival. They'll have like maybe 2 or 3 titles that they'll throw up that are huge, that'll come down the pipe a little bit later. But I live in LA, so I know I'll eventually see it, and I just don't go to South by Southwest. Yes, I talked about you missed me talking about Cat in the Hat. I saw they didn't really show footage for Cat in the Hat. They showed a trailer. They didn't show footage. They just showed a trailer because I was there for that. They did not show footage for Cat in the Hat. They just showed a trailer. And like I was saying earlier, most of what they show at CinemaCon are trailers. They very rarely show footage from a whole film. I think they did show 10 minutes of F1 with Brad Pitt. They did show that. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, they don't really show the films. The only film in totality that was shown was the live action portion of How to Train Your Dragon. They announced a fully animated Tom and Jerry movie, a Flintstones movie, and Untitled Looney Tunes. Yeah, I think that was all part of the Warner Brothers slate, but they flew through that. They didn't talk about it a whole lot. They just said, this is what we got coming out, and that's it. I was there for that. They didn't do a whole lot of centered around that. They just kind of said, this is what we got coming out, and they just kind of showed you a picture or two, and or the stars of the film or the directors came out and talked about it briefly, but that was about it. Like it wasn't a full-fledged thing like it normally would be under any other circumstances. But CinemaCon is good for someone like me because it gives me an opportunity to figure out what I'm going to see coming down the pipeline. So I love going just so I can get a handle on the rest of the year, so I can figure out what's going to play here, what's going to play there, so I can try to, schedule my time around the slate. Flowers. Thank you. Oh, you giving me leprechauns too? You're funny. And Beyond the Spider-Verse, they did have a release date for that on June 4th, 2027. They didn't. You said they showed footage for a new song animated movie called Go. They showed a trailer. Again, they showed a trailer. They did not show footage. They showed a trailer. They showed trailers, not footage. 7 seconds of dynamic duo. That I did not see. But again, they only show trailers. They do not. There are very few films that they show actual footage of. And like I said, the one that they did show footage of was F1 with Brad Pitt. They did show footage of that. But yeah, they don't show too much footage because people got shenanigans and they don't know how to, when they say don't take video, don't take this, don't do that, folk will come up in there and they'll do it anyway. And it's just highly disrespectful to the whole process of the, what is it? It's highly disrespectful to the whole process of the convention. They're doing us a favor by allowing us to see this footage. See these trailers. So let me explain what CinemaCon is. CinemaCon is a convention for theater owners. AMC, Cinemark, Regal Cinemas, and independent cinemas around the country, like Gardena Cinema in California. They show trailers. Sometimes the trailers are like 2 minutes, sometimes they're a little longer. Yeah, was I at the Paramount? I wasn't at the Paramount one, so I didn't see that. And I didn't see and I heard that they showed Zootopia too. I wasn't there for as I said earlier, I wasn't there for the Paramount and the Disney presentations because I had gone to New York to participate in the Center's junket and attend the premiere for that. But I love how y'all be keeping me on my toes. Like, Brandon, I am not mad at you. You like, look, let me tell you a thing or two. This is what they talked about and this is what they did. I am not mad at you. Thank you for keeping me on my toes and letting me know what is up. I'm still waiting for this footage to drop. So if y'all got some more questions, come at it. You said they showed Lilo and Stitch. Yeah. So again, I wasn't at the Disney presentation. I know that they showed, but what I did say earlier before you popped in is I did say that Disney has a lot of sequels coming out. They got Bolt 2. They got all these sequels. Let me see if I have it. They have a bunch of sequels coming out on their slate, like a ton of them. And I saw that stuff being talked about and released, but I wasn't there for that. So I missed the Disney presentation. I was very sad. But everything else I saw. I saw the trailers for everything else. A lot of the stuff that's coming out of the Lionsgate slate is really gory and really kind of like, ooh. But it's interesting. Like, and I would say, if I had to say who my favorite presentation was, I would say it was a toss-up between Sony and Universal is what I would say, because I love the fact that Sony came right out the gate. They were like, boom, 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 boom. This is what we have. And I also loved how Universal had that full orchestra there. It just made it made people kind of sit up and pay attention, like you didn't get bored. Because when I tell you, so let me just break down how this goes. So when you come in, it's like at 9 o'clock in the morning and the presentations start. The cinema owners and the people that run Cinema United, they come out and they talk about what Cinema United is, what the goal of the convention is for this year. And then people come out and they give speeches. And then CinemaCon also honors certain talent along the way. So that is what CinemaCon is. And now that Government Cheese is up, I can stop talking and you can take a look and listen to this interview with David Oyelowo and Bokeem Woodbine from Government Cheese, streaming on Apple TV Plus.
Are you the mom from Shake It Up?
Yes, I was.
Oh my God. Like, I used to love Shake It Up.
I love Shake It Up.
Oh, yeah, we love Shake It Up. I was recognizing, so I was like, oh, okay, sorry, I was distracted.
Well, you're as much of a fan of me as I am of the two of you. You guys are fabulous.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is so funny that you recognize me from that. Wow. It was a long time ago. Jai, what was it like to film in those woods? Because that scene with Harrison, it took quite a bit of time and y'all were playing and skipping stones. Did you have a day where something really crazy happened? You know, because Black people, we are not known for camping. We are not known for being in the outdoors. Not like that.
Yeah, that was part of the initial concern. Every day there was something. But I love shooting those scenes. I love the adventurous aspect of like going to different locations and getting outside of our comfort zone. Like, it was really, really fun. David and I, it really felt like a camping trip, to be honest. It felt like a real sort of remote adventure. It was fun.
So I know that you are a very accomplished musician and the score plays a great part in this series that you're on, right? So if your group were to arrange something or contribute something to the soundtrack, what do you think that would sound like?
It would be Bootsy's theme.
Okay.
Bootsy's theme. And it would be very bass heavy. It would sound like if Funkadelic and Sir James Marshall Hendricks, otherwise known as Jimi Hendrix.
Yes.
Ron Isley, maybe my man Sly Stone were to all to have a barbecue and the instruments just happen to be there, and they said, hey, you know what? Let's do something, and let's get a Fred Wesley and the Horny Horns from James Brown's band, and let's just come up with a theme.
I love that. That was really well crafted. I can visualize it happening as you were talking.
I've seen it as I'm saying it.
That was kind of fabulous. I got to give you one on that one.
Thank you.
This show is also a show that is about second chances. Was there someone that you gave a second chance to and you immediately regretted it?
Yeah. I mean, once or twice in my youth, I think I had given folks a second chance, only to be reminded of why, I was cross with them in the first place. Sometimes a second chance just doesn't pan out the way you think it would. But I think forgiveness, generosity, understanding is always positive. And even if you have to pivot from that stance to a stance of, boundaries and self-respect and you have to push people away sometimes. The act of giving a second chance and being forgiving is a valuable thing. You know what I mean? You might not want to give a third chance, but, I think we can learn from giving somebody a second chance, even if it doesn't work out. It can benefit us, I think, sometimes.
I don't know if I've ever regretted. I have to say I've been blessed not to have been in a situation where I've needed to give people too many second chances. But I do believe, when someone shows you who they are, you gotta believe in them. So I'm really big in loving people at a distance. It's like, I love you, but go over there with all that. Like, you can't be in my space, positive energy, good vibes.
I also know that you're a very, very spiritual brother. How much of your spirituality did you bring to Bootsy? Because it looked like quite a bit, because Bootsy was kind of chill.
Well, I didn't know people knew that about me, but no, I would say that.
Baby, yeah. I'm a journalist. It's my job to know stuff.
Okay. I would say that Bootsy was definitely in line with some of my own interpretations of spirituality and how we conduct ourselves in the world. And he definitely is infused with certain, I guess people would call them esoteric or existentialist or maybe even Eastern type of meditations and ideas about life. Because here's a man as a combat veteran who, he took people's lives and, he's been in that scenario where, he's had to aim a weapon at another human being and pull the trigger on purpose, not by accident, on purpose. He's been wounded and all of that kind of thing. And I think that he made a choice to let those experiences pass through him and not take hold and take rest in him and take refuge in him and harden and calcify his heart. That having been said, just like any combat veteran, when they find themselves in certain kind of situations, a switch can be flipped. It's just the training. It is just what it is. Unfortunately, it's not something that ever really leaves them. And I base that assumption on all the combat veterans I've known in my life and the conversations I've had with them. It never really leaves you that ability to go there, unfortunately. But luckily for him, he self-medicates too. So that keeps him cool and in line with his Eastern philosophies, if you will. And so he's going about life in a purposeful manner of being chill and peaceful and cool as often as possible.
Well, you're chill, peaceful, and cool, and I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. I hope I get to speak to you many more times in the future.
Me too. Thank you very much.
I'm I'm just curious, where did the title Government Cheese come from?
So I did a short film with Paul Hunter, who created the show 6 years ago, and it was called Government Cheese back then. And I asked the same question. I'm playing a version of Paul's dad in this show, and Hampton Chambers, who is my character, is someone who's just filled with aspiration and invention. And anyone who knows what government cheese was back in the days, government subsidized food, government cheese. And it's this cheese that it became beloved because of the grilled cheeses you can make with it and the macaroni cheese. And, it was government subsidized food, but people made it into a delicacy. And there are people you still say it to now, and they're like, oh my gosh, that was the best cheese in the world. And so, it's in our show, government cheese is symbolic of making lemonade out of lemons. You take the little you have and you make it into something incredible. This guy starts incarcerated. He has this epiphany about a self-sharpening drill, and that's going to be the means by which his family is going to come out of the challenges that they face. And you see that with his wife in the show, his sons, they all have these aspirations. And so government cheese is sort of symbolic of that.
If there was an invention now that you thought could use an overhaul, what do you think that might be?
For years, I just thought, why do we still walk around with these pink band-aids as black people on our body? Every time I get a boo-boo, I'm walking around with a white person's band-aid. Thankfully they've got brown ones now, but I'm like, we need shades. There's shades to us. So, that's something I've been craving forever. Then my daughter used to do a ballet class, and then I thought, hold on. The reason why she's wearing a pink tutu is because that's for white people. Where's the brown tutu? So we just need to blackify things for me. So yeah, Band-Aids and tutus, please. Thank you very much.
I think we need to, we're in 2025. I think toilet paper needs to go. I think we should, I know there's such thing as bidets, but they should make that mandatory for everybody in every restroom. So I'm gonna definitely oversee that. Toilet paper out of here.
You did not go Band-Aids and tutus and talk about boo-boos, baby. You had me dying. And that's my time, David. I have so many more questions for you about this show, but I enjoyed it. I thought it had a lot of heart with a lot of grit kind of tumbled in there every once in a while, and some very complicated characters who on the surface seem like they got it together, but they really don't. So I appreciated that. And thank you so much for bringing that to us.
Oh, my pleasure. My absolute pleasure. So great to see you as always.
It's great to see you too. I'll see you soon. When I tell y'all I had no sleep the night before, that's why my hair looked a hot mess, and so did I. But I want to thank David Oyelowo, Bokeem Woodbine, and my two little brothers for giving me their time today. I also want to thank Paul Walter Hauser and his director, Samir, for talking to me about The Luckiest Man Alive. Again, Government Cheese will be on Apple TV Plus beginning April 16th. The Luckiest Man Alive is in theaters. Freaky Tales is streaming on Hulu, and Gone Girl, the Long Island Serial Killer is streaming on Netflix, and The Studio is also streaming on Apple TV Plus. Join me next week, y'all, when I get into what? As I said it 3 times already, I'm going to get into who? Get into what? Get into the shit. Get into the show, the movie Sinners with Michael B. Jordan. It's going to hit theaters on April 18th. And having said that, that is my time. I will catch y'all on the flip side. Let me come back on camera to say goodbye. I will catch you on the flip side. Love, peace, and hair grease, and deuces. Until next week. Bye.
Hold up. Wait a minute. I wish you love, peace, and hair grease.
Love,